Hello there, this is a quick tutorial to go through how, when I first log into my Linux Pop! OS system, how do I first set it up for working. Now normally by work I mean I'm doing video editing, colour grading, audio composition or some kind of media content creation, and these things are quite often very labour intensive in terms of CPU or GPU usage. And so there's a few things over the time that I've realised really help with kind of helping with your workflow, improving your workflow and avoiding potential problems such as running out of memory or running out of space, etc. And also just making work easier. So imagine I've just logged in now. I'm actually already got a few applications running, but if I just logged in, everything would be there'd be nothing running. So the first thing I would do is straight away head over to PopShop. Now if there are any updates, if I click on it, if there are any updates, the icon on the dock would normally show you how many updates. But just to show you how you could check manually, if you click on installed, at the top it will show you if there's anything to install. And the reason why you want to do this, quite often there's operating system updates. If they impact on any other software that you're going to be using, or for example, the graphics cards drivers or audio drivers or anything like that, you want to make sure that they're up to date. All updates normally are either security or stability or improvements in performance. So generally it's good practice to keep everything up to date. So if there are any updates, you can inspect them and you can then update them. And you want to do that first because you want to know if any updates are going to impact on software that you're planning on using, but also it may take a bit of time for the files to be downloaded and then installed, and so you want to kick that off before you start doing anything else. Now the next thing I always do is I open up System Monitor for two reasons. Number one, before I do any big piece of work like rendering out a film or importing a load of data from my cameras or from my audio equipment, I want to check how much headroom I've got on my file system. So it's always good to have a kind of a dashboard view of what's going on. Are you going to run out of space? The next reason why I have this up and running now is it's already starting to monitor CPU usage, memory and swap space usage, and network traffic. I'm not so concerned about network traffic, but what I am interested in is looking at the memory and the CPU. The reason being that quite often when software crashes, for example Blender, Lightworks, Davinci Resolve, it quite often is because it's either hit a memory limit, a swap limit, or the CPUs are maxed out. More often it's memory rather than CPUs. So it's handy to have this running now so that when I open up my software, I can kind of profile it. If there is a crash, I can go to this, knowing that it's already recorded the kind of history of what happened leading up to that crash. The other thing you can do is if you have something that's not responding, you can find it here and, for example, we're not going to do this, but you can end the process. You see this little button down at the bottom, so you can highlight a problem and then try and end it from here. Obviously, if you're a bit more tech savvy, you would do it from the command line. And on this machine, if we hit what looks like the Windows key and T, then it brings up the command line, and if we type in, for example, top, we get what is actually the same as this, just the non-graphical user interface version of it running. And this is how you would also, for example, if we queue to quit, we would, for example, issue the kill command to a particular process ID, but you'd need to know what you're doing. So I'm just kind of flagging that. I'm going to leave this here because we may refer back to it. And by the way, if you want to kill a terminal, it's just Control D will kill it. So Windows key T to bring up another terminal. And you could also go to applications and, for example, type in terminal here and get it from there. We've got this running, and I'd normally leave it running in the background. So with that running, the next thing I'm going to do straight away is open caffeine indicator. One click and you see we've got this empty cup. If I click on it, we can activate it, and what that will do now is it will prevent my screen from going to sleep. So if I have to walk away while my computer's doing some rendering or doing some tracking of an object on I don't know, Davinci Resolve or something like that, which takes a bit of time, I go off and make a cup of coffee. This prevents the screen from being locked, so that when I come back I don't have to type in my password again. But obviously if you do want to lock your screen for security reasons, then you can just come here and click lock. Now you may have noticed this weird icon next to it. This is the next thing that I would normally open. Now I've already got it open, so let's just click on it. And what this is really important. It's called QPW Graph, and you can install it on any kind of Ubuntu type system. And what it does is it takes audio inputs and outputs and patches them together. So right now I've got OBS recording and I've put it through to the Scarlett 8i6 multi-channel input, which is the headphones aux 0 and aux 1. I've also got my mic on the Scarlett 8i6 going into OBS here and here. And so this is allowing me, so this side of things is the OBS inputs and this is OBS's output bus. And this allows us to map various audio devices together. This is really handy to know about, and let me just do a very quick demo. So if you'll notice that Firefox isn't showing on here, if we open Firefox and I go to one of my videos, so let's just open this. Right.
Hello, this is a Blender
so this is
rendering
playing, but I've deliberately turned
comparison
down
against my MacBook Pro M1
audio
versus Pop! OS with a
so
NVIDIA G4.
Now, so you get the idea. But that, now that it's playing, if we take it off mute for a second,
Identical, the settings are identical, and both of them
now
have already
see
done a render of this
when it was
frame,
muted,
so if there's any caching advantages,
by default
they're on an even keel.
To the monitor,
and this is really a head-to-head,
monitor.
so I hit render
what we
at
can
the
do
same time on
highlight
both
that,
machines.
right click and go disconnect. We can either highlight one of these and grab it and connect it to the headphones like this, or if I highlight them and disconnect them again, you can highlight that by holding down Shift and clicking on the box and then right click anywhere and click connect, and it will do it, but it will do every channel. We can highlight some of the channels and click disconnect, so you get an idea. Let's just disconnect that. So what it's doing is it's allowing us to take the output from Firefox and decide, do we want it to go to the speakers on our screen or to my headphones on the Scarlett 8i6. And this is really handy if you do any kind of audio stuff. For example, we've got Waveform and Audacity up here, we can patch them. Not everything needs to come through this, so something like Audacity, you can actually, if I just open up Audacity, it will appear, you can see things flashing here, so things were starting to appear in here. But Audacity, for example, if we click on audio setup, by default it's picking up because it's using ALSA rather than Jack. When you start looking into audio on any kind of Linux system, you need to look at basically Jack and ALSA and Pipewire and a few other things, but this is beyond this little video. This is really just to show you how I set up my machine. So let's start monitoring. So you can see I haven't had to do anything in here, and it's successfully picking up the mic because the way the audio is set up is a bit different here. It already knows that it's using the defaults for the ALSA system. Once I've got my audio set up, I've got my monitoring running, I've got my caffeine to stop the system from timing out. The next thing you need to do is click on settings. Now this you only need to do once, but it's worth knowing about. And go to displays and click on night light and make sure night light is switched off, because if you're doing graphics, color grading, reviewing footage, anything to do with color, night light will turn the screen to an orange hue and remove the blues, or certainly dim them down, and that will play havoc with your color grading or your graphics, because you'll think, hang on a sec, everything's looking a bit orange, I better compensate by adding more blue. And then when you watch it on another screen, you'll go, hang on a sec, everything's really blue, where's the orange gone? And once that's turned off, that's it done. So system's up to date. By the way, just as an aside, if we go up here to applications, Synaptic Package Manager is another way of managing your packages and making sure everything's up to date. For example, we've got caffeine on here, so if you didn't have it but you wanted to install it, then you could install Synaptic Package Manager, and then you can do things like this. So you would right click on that and go mark for installation. I've already got it, so we don't need to install it. Once you've marked it, then apply and it will find it, install it, etc. So this is just another way. PopShop tends to be a sanitized view of packages according to the founders of Pop! OS, System 74. And so these are all the things that they've cleaned up and prepared for their package manager. But there's many more packages that will work on the system. And so whereas Pop! OS, PopShop will show you what they've got updates for, you can also do it from here. And I mentioned the command line. So there's a program called apt, which you want to become familiar with. There's loads of stuff on forums, but basically, for example, you could go just zoom out. and it will just pull down and see if there's any updates, anything needs doing, and it's saying everything's up to date. If there was need, then as you can see from here, you can do an upgrade, sudo apt update and then sudo apt upgrade. You know, this is just the tip of the iceberg with this package manager, but you get the idea. Quite often you can do things from the front end, or you can do them from the back end, and that's Unix. It's very powerful. Just Control D, close that down. So we set everything up. We know we've got plenty of headroom. The last thing to do, as kind of getting a good practice of doing, is before you start any work, especially if space is an issue, is go to your rubbish bin, do a quick visual review, make sure there's nothing you want to keep, and if you want to get rid of everything, hit empty, because Pop! OS and other versions of Linux quite often have this abstraction of a rubbish bin where it temporarily puts stuff on until you actually make sure you get rid of it. So whereas from the command line, if you, for example, let's just do a quick text file. Hello world. Right, so we've written that in our home drive, and I'll prove that by going here. There it is, test text, and it's 12 bytes, huge. So if I were to go rm test.txt, it's deleted, and we can see that it's deleted, it's gone. But if we go to the rubbish bin, it hasn't gone into the rubbish bin. So when you do stuff from the command line using rm, it doesn't put it into the rubbish bin. But when you do things from the file manager kind of thing, then anything that you delete, so for example, let's delete that, move to the rubbish bin. Okay, so now if we go to the rubbish bin, we'll see that it's still there. We haven't actually got rid of it, which we're going to do now. Empty the rubbish bin. Okay, so that's how we get ready for a day's work. Now, everything I've shown you takes me literally about 20 seconds. Okay, so hopefully that's been helpful, maybe shown you some tools that you didn't realise, and have a good day.